Okay, me, I'm here. Okay, and the very important table to my left, because that is the reason most of us are all here tonight, and that is, we have a new sheriff in town. We have a new sheriff in the county, and his name is Tom Ferrara, and he must be afraid to travel alone because he came with a whole bunch of guys with him. And I'm going to introduce them, but I'm also going to give them the microphone so they can all say, well, actually, let them do it themselves. Okay. Oh, you got one. Oh, check.
Hi, my name is Keith Bloomfield, a 25-year veteran with the Sheriff's Office.
I'll speak in a minute.
I'm Gary Faulkner, Captain and the Custody Division Commander.
I'm Gary Elliott, I'm the Undersheriff.
I'm Bill Hornbrook, Sergeant at the Sheriff's Office, working on the enforcement team.
Very good. These guys are all here tonight because we have an awful lot of questions about the realignment program that exists right now in our area, and also, well, it exists all over the state, as a matter of fact. Yep. And we are also interested in gun rights. They're going to mostly be talking about realignment, but they're here. There's 5 of them, so you can tackle them all and answer any questions that you want to ask them. I want to introduce to you Tom Ferrara. He is our new sheriff, and I want you to know that his election will be coming up soon. He's been appointed because Gary Stanton stepped down. And there is somebody that's going to run against this man who does not have any of the same beliefs that we do. So this is the guy we need to vote for. Tom.
And I need a mic, right? Yeah, okay. I'm not a mic guy, but all right, we'll do that tonight. Good evening. Thank you for having us. I'd like to do a little more introduction in the sense that have most of you folks been in the military at one point or another? Yes. Okay, so you know how it works. So the captain volunteered. As soon as I said I was coming to see you, the captain and undersheriff being a colonel in the Army Reserve, volunteered to come. Keith, as you see, there's nothing on his collar or such, so he kind of got ordered to be here, as did Bill. So that's kind of how it works, and you guys all understand that. The reason why I brought this up, so I intended to bring Keith and Bill, because Keith is actually our audiovisual guy, and Bill works on the Sheriff's Enforcement team, of which we're going to talk about a little bit. So I'd like him maybe to speak and talk about how it is, kind of where the rubber meets the road out on the streets, because that's what Bill does, and he's the one that does the dirty work. We can talk about it, but Bill sees what it's all about, and we can answer some questions about that. So what I wanted to do this evening was we wanted to talk about realignment. I know you're going to have some questions about gun rights. I prepared a letter which I will pass out to all of you. I think you'll find it favorable. We'll talk about that. And then I've got a couple questions about concealed weapons permits. So that's kind of where I'd like to go this evening, if that's okay. And I know we're somewhat limited on time. Realignment, and I've got a couple notes here that I'll go on the first couple slides, is confusing. What we wanted to do, and you guys are going to be my test groups, because this is pretty much our first stab at this. When you talk about public safety realignment, does anybody in this room really understand or have a good grasp of what it is?
I do.
Okay, because you live it probably every day.
Well,
And you ran.
do you want me to explain?
No, I want you. So I got one. Okay, does anybody else? A heckler already before we get started. So what we're looking to do is I want to try to explain realignment.
Don't worry, Joe.
Yeah, you guys take care of that. I want to explain realignment in layman's terms so that when we're done, we kind of understand what's going on. Because it's really confusing. It confuses us. I've been in law enforcement for over 30 years. 29 years now at the Sheriff's Office. This is the biggest change that I've ever seen come out. This is literally consuming most of our time right now. Correct, guys? That's what we're doing. And quite honestly, we've taken a program that the state failed with, keeping folks in prison. We're overcrowded. And for lack of a better term, it's a dump on the county. We're going to make it work. We're agile, we're nimble, and it's going to take us a couple of years to figure it out. But in the end, I think this is probably going to be the right thing to do, although we were brought into it kicking and screaming. That's the best way to say it. Okay? So, what is realignment? How's it affected California's prison population? How's it affected our jail, the local Solano County Jail? And we have 2 jails, one downtown, which is our main booking facility, and one out at Claybank. So we have about 1,081 beds currently that are available to keep people locked up in the Solano County. So when you look at the state's overcrowding issues, They were the states were woefully overcrowded, where the state was with the prisons. Their costs were phenomenal, as you know, and they had to reduce who's coming back to jail. It's about a 70% recidivism rate, which means those are people that go back to prison. I think the number that's floating around now is about 63%. That's still not acceptable. So, arguably 7 out of 10 people, for every 10 people that get out of prison, 7 go back to state prison. It's not acceptable. It's expensive. It's not the best way to do it. And it was, quite frankly, a response to the Supreme Court's ruling on Brown versus Plata that forced the state to do something. Okay? So, California has 33 state prisons. And remember, I'm the sheriff, so I run the county jail. I don't run the state prison. But this is what caused realignment. So you have 33 state prisons, and they had a total design capacity of about 80,000 beds, a little less than 80,000. So, when realignment started, they were at 181% of capacity. So 144,200 inmates. This is when realignment first took effect. Okay? So in December, once they started doing their adjustment of the realignment, they were down to 147% of capacity, which means they shed 27,200 inmates. All right? Where we're at, or where they want to be at by June, and they've just got an extension to, I don't know when the extension is, but they've extended out now. Their goal is to be at 137.5% of capacity. So really, honestly, what they need to do is, in order to reach their goal, they need to lose 34,200 inmates. Now, they didn't release them onto the street, but they're doing some different stuff. Okay? So how's it affected Solano County? Obviously, our jail population is going to go up, right? Because if they're not in state prison, where do you think they're going to go? County jail. Okay? So here's a snapshot of kind of where we're at in the county jail. A couple of points I want to make here. Okay, when we started with realignment, the county jail was at about 772. I did that. You're not supposed to stand for the slide. 772 inmates, which was very low for us. We've been in the past, prior to the economic downturn, we were generally at over 1,000, and sometimes we had 100 people on the floor. What the change was the, quite honestly, Vallejo Police Department, or the city of Vallejo, filed for bankruptcy. So they had about 155 cops. They went down to 90. So what's going to happen is you're going to have less bookings in the county jail. So my numbers were prior to our high in bookings was this is yearly bookings, was 19,870 or 837. In 2011, we reached a low of 14,000. So that freed up a bunch of beds in the county jail. So we've been able to absorb realignment. This last year was about 14,900. So we're up just a bit. But as you probably read in the paper, you're starting to see the cities are coming out of their economic troubles as things have balanced out. So they're starting to hire more cops. When the cops are on the street, it's going to generate more arrests. So obviously it'll make the population in the jail go up. Where we're at today, or actually last week, was 902 inmates. So we have about 130 more folks in jail due to realignment, and they're in there long term. Most of the folks that were in county jail stayed about 28 to 29 days. That was the average, because some are in and out very quickly, and of course then some stay and fight their cases and stay a long time. Currently we have a sentence of up to 10 years due to realignment in the county jail. I'm designed to hold people for 1 year, and I'll talk a little bit more about that on another slide. So go ahead to the next one. Okay, so what is the jail makeup? What's going on? So arguably 42.3% of my jail population is realignment related, and that's 14 months into this. So that's the difference, okay? So we've absorbed a lot of this. If you look at and I've got the code sections up there, but I'll explain in plain English. But you can see the blue is the parolees. Those are folks that should have gone back to state prison. They're staying with us. The red group, the 22%, 202, are 1170 folks. Those are I'll explain that in the next slide. And then the green ones are what they call post-release community supervision. So I'll go through that in a second. Did I get any points on that one?
And what is the yellow?
That's my general jail population. Those are the guys that were there before realignment. So it's really changed a lot. If you can see where the difference is. Next slide. Okay, so I kind of explain realignment in a three-part process. There's three different things, or three different types of inmate, if you will, that we deal with. And so the best way to start out is prior to realignment. If you were a parolee, a real parolee, and they call them something a little bit different now, you went to state prison, or you were in state prison. Once you got out of state prison, you were released back to the county of residence. And then 70% of these folks, 7 out of 10, were rearrested by law enforcement or violated their parole somehow. They were sent back to the county jail, where within 10 to 14 days they received a hearing, and more than likely, all of them were sent back to state prison for up to 14 months. Okay? So after realignment, this is what it looks like now. So they go to state prison, or they're in state prison. They're released back to the community. Still about 70% don't do what they're supposed to do. They're picked up by Bill's guys. They go to the county jail. Okay, notice there's no state prison. So the difference is with a parolee, a true parolee, which concerns me as your sheriff, is the fact that they do 180 up to 180 days in county jail. By law, that's cut in half. So remember I said they were in 14 to 16 months in state prison. So now they're coming back to the jail, doing their 90 days, and out they go. 90 days or less, depending on what they're at. And then they go back to the community. So that is one of the... So when you're looking at the state's population dropping, nobody's going back to the state prison on a parole violation. They're all sitting in the county jail and clogging up the system. So the concern we have as all the sheriffs, and pretty much you as the citizens, is there's really no incentive for these folks to do well on parole. Okay? All right.
Right. This is just one piece of the realignment pie, if you will. It's the part in blue that you see. On October 1st, 2011, when realignment went into effect, we only had 11 parolees in the county jail. All right, and now we have, well, last Monday we had 131. So this one piece of the pie, you can see, had a big effect on the county jail.
And obviously reduces the state prison population. Okay. So that's part one to realignment. Okay, part two, you've heard him talk about the non-non-nons, or the opposite of the yes, yes, yeses. We refer to them as 11 sevens. What this is this is a person that normally, prior to realignment, would have been sentenced to state prison for their crime. Okay? So when you hear them say non-sexual, non-violent, non-serious, this has been determined by the state as that crime does not rise to the level to go to state prison. So prior to realignment, you're arrested by law enforcement, go to the county jail, and once you're sentenced to prison, you went to state prison, then you're released back to the community on parole. Okay? So now the way it works is you're arrested by local law enforcement, you go to the county jail, and you're sentenced to the county jail. In our case in Solano County, we have one that's up to 10 years. The jail's not designed for that. But remember, according to the state, this is a low-level offender. All right? So this is what we're dealing with. So what we have to do is figure out what to do with these folks when they're in our custody. And that's where we're going to have to change our programming model. And this is where I think we can be more successful. In that I'm going to take this guy that's in the county jail. We're pretty agile and nimble with our programs. We're going to come up with a program which the state probably can do and see if we can get these people trained. The other issue I have with this is have you heard the term split sentences? Yes. Split sentences means that the judge sentences you, and you've seen in the newspapers talking about the Day Reporting Center, or now the Center for Positive Change. They want to do one in Fairfield, one in Blair. I am for that, although I know some of the folks are not. But the reason why I am is because I cannot handle all these people in the county jail. Once these day reporting centers start, then what they'll do is hopefully do some split sentences. So a person will do maybe 1 or 2 years in the county jail, then will be released to this program where there's intensive supervision, and hopefully we can get some job skills and some other things so we can knock that recidivism rate. Our goal, my goal actually, but the goal of most of the sheriffs is to say, okay, when the state was running the program, 7 out of 10 folks were going back to state prison. When we're running it, we want to make sure that we drop that number down. Are we going to be perfect? No. If we can get 10%, 15%, we'll be doing our job in the next couple of years. But this is going to be a long road, and it's not going to be easy to do. Okay? So then the term post-release community supervision. Okay, this is the third and the last piece of the puzzle. So where you see PRCS, we should have put a little line that said formerly known as a parolee. Okay? So what a person, a post-release community supervision person is one of those low-level offenders that's released from state prison. And then, I'm out of off sync again.
He gets
Released from state prison, went to county jail. Then, under normal circumstances, in the good old days, we refer to them, they went to report to state parole. Parole watched them, not the county. 7 out of 10 of them got rearrested. They went back to the county jail, back to state prison. Okay. So the way it works now is this person's released from state prison, come back to our county of residence. They report to probation. And this model should, if we get this going right, this should work well. They report to probation where they can be watched a little more intensively, and then they're going to go out and hopefully not get arrested as much. I'm sure some will, but that's where Bill and his guys come in. We'll talk about that in a second. But if they violate, they go back to the county jail and they don't go to state prison. So see, the equation you're seeing, the common theme is these folks really haven't been released as much as they're not going back to prison. So prison is not accepting as many as they were, thus it's reducing their population. So that's how they're doing. Okay? Do you want to make another point? So what am I doing about it? What's my piece? So probation has about 390 of these folks on that they're watching, correct? Correct. So what we did is when this first came out, probation in Solano County, the probation officers are not armed. They don't have guns. So we wanted a higher level of security. So then Sheriff Stanton had stepped up and it was the right move. Said, hey, why don't we use some of this realignment funding that's coming in? Why don't we put a team together? We'll call them the Sheriff's Enforcement Team. And these guys' job is to go out and check these people. So we're effectively acting as parole did because they're out on post-release community supervision. So Bill and his crew go out and they do compliance checks on these guys. If somebody doesn't show up, they're out looking for them. And so we have a very aggressive approach that we're checking these guys, making sure that we're working with probation, that they have clean drug tests. I rode with you guys a month ago. Yes. Yeah, we were in Sassoon, and just about everybody we contacted, the first one had pulled up into the driveway, and the guy's got a Slim Jim or something in the window of the car, trying to pop the door open right when he pulled up. So he was high. He went to jail. His partner in the house went to jail. And they even had our orange jail clothes in the drawer stash, so he had gotten out of jail. So we added another truck.
He hid in the backyard?
Oh, he hid in the backyard, yeah. And then the next guy was naked, and it goes downhill from there. But so, this is not the cream of society, and that's why 7 out of 10, we're going back to prison. But we really want to, as the local government, I think we have much better control, and if there's a problem, we can make the adjustment and do what we need to do. So I'm confident the team's doing a good job. And I think it's the right thing to do. You have some stats as well, don't you? So this is some of the stuff we're pulling off the folks that are out of prison. And you can see this is things that they shouldn't have. If you're part of parole, you're not supposed to have shotguns or rifles or pistols or the drug paraphernalia and things like that. It's just not acceptable. So, but if you look at some of the statistics we have, this is about 12 months worth of stats. So our set teams made 252 arrests. But I need to kind of quantify that by saying that's not 252 arrests on these PRCS or parolee folks. As you all know, generally there's usually external candidates that get caught up in the mess. So a lot of times when we do the compliance checks, we go to the house to check the person that's on parole, and they're hanging out with 4 or 5 people they're not supposed to be with, who have drugs, illegal weapons, goes on and on, warrants. And so, of those arrests, what do you judges usually will do 3 or 4 arrests sometimes at one house. And only one is related to realignment. The rest are people that aren't supposed to be hanging out with them or doing what they're not supposed to do. So we've gotten a couple stolen cars. The thing I'm surprised with those narcotics aren't as high as what I thought they'd be. Does that surprise you, Bill? Can you talk a little bit about what you're finding in this place?
We do find lots of weapons and narcotics. When the program first started in the early months, we were basically booking it and moving on with it. And a lot of the narcotic stats we didn't start going into effect until the fiscal year started, Sheriff.
Oh, so they're not.
So it was more of a 6 months capture when you're talking about the stolen vehicles, the narcotics, and the firearms. So in the very beginning stages, we weren't statting at all. We were just booking it and moving on to the next case.
Because you were kind of
We was all new. We were trying to figure out, exactly how to progress with what we were assigned to do.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about your sex offender checks that you do as well?
Yeah. Yes. What we've done is we are basically doing a lot of compliance checks on anybody that needs some kind of check. So we spend the majority of our time in relation to the PRCS group, but along with parole has asked us to help with them, and they also help on our searches because they know a lot of these guys from the past. And then what came up is we have a lot of our sex offenders that are out in each city, in the county areas, all around the county, and some of them also have search terms or Fourth Amendment waivers where they're on probation or parole, and some are not. Some just have to do their registrations. So as a result of all these sex offenders living in this area, not a lot of searches are always done on them. They come and do their registration, whatever that may be. They may be every year or every month, depending on their terms. But we've gone out now and we're contacting them at their house, confirming their registrations. If they have search clauses, we look for things that they're not supposed to have. So we've incorporated that into just basically our home searches that we do on a daily basis.
Keeping an eye on, which is what you
Yes.
Does that make sense to you when we explain realignment that way? Is that helpful?
It sounds like nobody, once you're released from prison, you don't go back until you're actually convicted of a new crime.
Bingo. Yeah, so that's kind of the interesting thing, is that if the only way you go back to state prison is if you're convicted of a crime that qualifies. So if it's another non-crime, non-sexual, non-violent, then you would arguably be sentenced back to the county jail.
So that would count for 3 strikes. That doesn't count for 3 strikes.
Correct. Well, the other problem, the issue that's problematic is that the court does not look at what your past criminal record is. So if, say, you had a violent crime, well, I probably shouldn't be on the camera, a violent crime in your past, if you did a non-crime, you would go back to the county jail instead of state prison. So they're really looking at your last crime. And I think there's some trailer language coming up. There's cleanup language with realignment. So there's some holes in it and problems with it that we're having that I know the State Sheriff's Association is going after. So there's a couple of things that we need to tweak with it to make sure it runs properly. It's not perfect, but I think one of the nice things is one of the things I'm going to push, and I talked to the board about it the other day, is if I have these folks in the county jail, and you're probably aware we're building another county jail with 362 beds, maximum security at the Claybank site, it'll be right next to the one that was there. I need to radically change how we program and provide services to inmates. Our design prior to realignment was for somebody that was in county jail for a year or less. So your idea of what you can do with a person in less than 12 months or less is going to be much different than if I have a person 2, 3, 4 years. So, and that's kind of where I think the state prison had a problem. They were so overcrowded and so overloaded. They couldn't program. They couldn't do anything, and they were bogged down in all the red tape that the state has. We don't really have that. We have some, but not to the near level. We're not to the level of that. So my vision is there's a grant right now. It's SB 1022, which is coming out, and I think it's not a realignment grant, but it's kind of one of the ones that will help us. That it allows us to take our existing Claybank jail, the old one from 1979, and reuse it to some extent where I can build some programming space. I would like to really focus on vocational programming. My vision, and I've got the captain working on it now, is that I want to be realistic in our programming. A lot of what takes place is we talk about programming and talk about job training, and Mark's back there, you know what I'm talking about. Why would you train somebody in a job they have no ability to get when they get out of jail? So you've got somebody that's convicted of a felony, and they're not going to go and drive a school bus. There's folks that aren't going to hire them. So why would we waste our time trying to train that person with no hope of outcome? And I'm using that, and it would not be an appropriate way to use the taxpayers' dollars. It's dumb. So what we think that there's an opportunity for folks to, with the felony conviction, to drive big trucks, buses. Go ahead, Gary.
I think one of the things we need to consider is the fact that we realize that staying in prison, staying in jail with a bunch of other bad people for full sentences doesn't work. And
How's this work? Okay. So anyways, I think we realize that people staying in prison for years and years and years, or in the county jail with a bunch of other people, for criminals, day after day, doesn't work because they don't have the ability to develop any type of skill set that allows them to survive on the street. We look at some of the basic programming we've had in the past where we hold people up to a year pre-alignment or realignment. And, we look, for example, we have a GED program, an educational component. We realized that many of them couldn't even participate in that because they tested to a 3rd and 4th grade level. So, with that said, with the lack of education and with the lack of programming and the lack of any type of life skills, the inability to file a job application, maintain a checking account, do any of the simple things that we all take for granted, they are released and go back to the lifestyle they know, which is committing crimes. So a lot of people seem to think that programming is being soft on crime. And in fact, we're looking at it as being a problem-solving solution. We don't expect it to be an overnight fix, but if we're going to keep people in jail for a longer period of time, we're going to look at a process where we bring them in and conduct an assessment, determine the type of inmate that we're dealing with, what kind of skill set these folks have. Based on that, we're going to develop a programming guideline that's specific to those inmates, teaching them anger management, substance abuse, things of these nature that caused so many problems for them when they were on the outside. And then we're going to start developing some skill sets in them where they can get into some of these jobs where a criminal record isn't necessarily a critical component of them getting a job. Okay. Now it's much like everyone knows someone who drinks too much, the alcoholic, right? An alcoholic who doesn't want any help is going to remain an alcoholic. We're here to try and identify those inmates that are tired of going to jail, getting released, knowing nothing but crime, committing crimes, and going back to jail. If we can get those folks identified, put them through programming where we can get them a GED, get them a driver's license, get them a social security card, and give them some basic job skills that can put them to work somewhere and work with employers in the community to get these folks a job. Hopefully, that'll take the edge off. They can enjoy some success many times for the first time in their life. And they could realize that they can enjoy a more productive life, hopefully not committing crimes and just going on with their life and reducing our jail population and reducing the massive associated costs that come into play with combating this type of criminal activity.
Yeah, so if the programs are successful, then I, as the sheriff, have the ability to do some releasing. So when these guys are in jail, it's expensive. It is very expensive to run the jail. And so if we can get some people out that have programmed with us for a while, or as probation, you'll see them with the split sentences, if they're out of custody, it's much less expensive for you and I as taxpayers. And we need to be very cautious with the taxpayers' money, of which all of us are very conservative. And again, I have to weigh the public protection into it. So if I don't trust them, because it's me that's going to release them or someone from my staff, we have to make sure that if a person's going to be out of custody while programming, they're going to be on GPS or they're going to be on some type of system, because I don't want them going out and committing another crime if they're supposed to be, under our care and custody. And that's where Bill comes in. So Bill's team will keep an eye on them. But so far right now, we have room in the jail. We have not released anybody under 1170, although we do have some authority to do so. I just have the luxury of right now not to do that. So I can stand here and say I'm tough on crime, but I don't have the proper programs in place. But being tough on crime is not cheap. So we have to do something because we cannot sustain this. You in Solano County don't, when we have this next 362 beds on, that's to be almost 1,500 beds in Solano County. That's a lot of money. And so if we can keep them out of there the best we can, I think that's wise. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry, I didn't forget you.
As a taxpaying citizen, I have to say that I cannot even comprehend how difficult this has to be when they just keep pushing down to you what has to be done. I have a son who's been in and out of prison his whole entire life, so I'm very well acquainted with it.
The cycle, yeah.
And yet, and I will say that one of the problems in the past with parole or probation has been they're looking to bust you. They weren't looking to help you. So I think that what you're saying about finding out where these folks are, what skills they have, and even, I don't know how many of them end up homeless because they don't have anybody to give them home.
That's a big problem. That's the other thing that Bill finds is we're going out trying to do a check on them, and they're sleeping on somebody's couch. That's exactly
where
right.
Where are they going to go in reality? And if they have to pay for GPS but they have no income, how are they going to do that?
Well, actually, they don't have to pay for GPS. There's a system in place that, if they're indigent, we'll do it because, again, if I can get them out of jail, I'll pay for the GPS because it's like, what, $2 a day? Yeah, it's cheap compared to what it costs. I think our number to keep somebody in the county jail is about $130 a day. And so if I can put them on GPS for a couple bucks, that's a lot.
The other problem is they don't have skill sets. They're not just jobbers. They don't know how to relate to just ordinary people.
Yeah.
They don't know how not to game you.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing, what we found is one of the classes we have to put on, we call it, there's life skills classes. You have to sit down and say, do you have a driver's license? No. Do you know how to get one? No. Do you know where your social security card is? No. Have you ever filled out a job application? No. So what we do is to say, okay, if you're going to be with us, let's have a class on how to do a resume. Do you have a resume? No. I've been in prison. Well, that's, great, worked in the laundry there, and that's the other thing, you got to look at, right now one of the big popular things is culinary stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, most people, probably with a felony record, would be able to get a job as a chef or a cook. So we have a large kitchen at the one jail because we've changed our food service delivery, where we get it frozen now and we heat it up, so it's much faster and cheaper. We have a kitchen that's sitting idle at one of the jails. Well, we could do a little work in that, and we could fire that kitchen up. If we could get the proper vocational training person in there, we could start doing some vocational training in that area, because you know what? That's a job you might be able to get when you get out of jail.
Yeah.
I'm not going to train them in jobs if they have no hope of getting a job. I'm not wasting the money on it. Sir, you have a question? I'm sorry, Mr. Hudson.
Yeah, the Fox 40 reported the other night that 38,000 ankle bracelets had been cut off, and that they weren't busting them for the ankle bracelets because they'd just release them back to the community anyway. What's going on with that?
I'm glad you asked that question. Thank you very much. That was a nice setup. I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't know if you all heard the question was, hey, the news stories have been doing these again, the media, like you guys were talking about in the beginning, the media, it's amazing the spin they put on stuff. I'm getting a lot of questions about, gee, Sheriff, you have people that are cutting off their GPS bracelets and you're not doing anything about it. No, we know where our folks are. What's taking place is the people that are on state parole are cutting the bracelets off, and then the parole isn't staffed up enough to go out and look for them. The other issue that they're having, this problem number 2, is that a lot of counties will not accept the parolee violator back to the county jail because they're full. So what do they do with them? Fortunately, in Solano County, if you are a parolee and you do that, we'll take you back to jail. So the county sheriff is not, we don't have any problem with that because we know where our folks are and we're checking them if somebody cuts a bracelet off. Oh, we're going to go out and look for them. So that's pretty much a state issue, but it is something we're watching.
It's in the state, though, right?
In the state, not Solano County.
That's exactly.
I'm sure there's some in Solano County that have, but state rules. Supposed to watch.
Not direct.
Oh no, not our prisoners. No. Yeah, state prisoners, not our prisoners. Yeah. Thank you for asking that. That was one point I wanted to make tonight. Yeah, so we've got some challenges ahead with this, no doubt about it. They tell us that realignment won't be fully rolled out for another year and a half. It's a 3-year rollout, Gary, I think. So I think we're handling it well now. The part 2, though, is we got to get these day reporting centers or centers for positive change up and running, and those need to be monitored. And then we need to hopefully at the county jail change our programming model. So that's one of. This is just, I can't tell you how consuming this is. This is every day. It's, half your day dealing with realignment related issues and what are we going to do and how, there's a lot of coordination that takes place. Local police departments is a good example. There's been some money that's been transferred to the county to pay for realignment. So that's what's paid for some of the positions, and of course they're cutting the CDC, the state prison budget, accordingly as they're passing back to the counties. So what do the local police departments are saying, hey, we want to be able to check some of these folks. So we put some money aside and we do compliance checks with the PDs. So Bill will team up with Fairfield or Vacaville or Vallejo PD or whoever when we do our sweeps, and then we do it as a large group. So probation, parole, sheriff's officers, and then whatever city we're in, they'll tag along, and we'll pay for their cost for that evening. So it's, that way they have, and it's nice to have them go along because there's areas in the cities that they probably know some of the things about the bad guys we don't know. So it's kind of nice to have them along. They'll have a little intelligence we don't have. But then again, we have quite a bit ourselves as well. So I think it's working.
Since we as citizens are affected a lot by this entire program because they're being what can we do to help? Is there anything that we can do? Is there anything that we can take part in? Or, other than coming and working in the kitchen?
Well, yeah, that would be nice.
Teaching,
Hire some people, no.
Apart from voting for you and all you guys.
Well, I think the biggest thing is the biggest battle we've had, and it's not really my battle because I don't run the Center for Positive Change. There's been some pushback. I think some of the folks that most of you live here in Fairfield or Vacaville, there's probably going to be some talk about trying to start one of these centers in Fairfield. The idea is, and it's not a sheriff's function, but the idea that people have in their mind is, all these parolees or PRCS guys are going to be hanging out there and committing crimes. That's not the way it works. They're going to go in, they program, and they leave. They have to get out of the area. So I don't think there's going to be any danger. We'll be checking them, so will Fairfield and Vallejo. So we've gotten a lot of bad press about that, or the county, and actually the county has. And I really think it's unjust. I think this is the right thing to do. Again, I think local government in the long run is going to show the state that we can do this, do it much more effectively in the long run, probably cheaper. And I believe we'll be successful. Are we there now? No. But this is not going to be, how long did the state have to do this? So we've had it for, 14 months? So we'll see.
But doesn't that leave you in danger of being successful and continuing them giving you even more and more prisoners? Look, we can do it more successful, and so here you guys can have more.
Yeah, there's no more room at the end. Yeah, well, and that's the danger is what we're watching again through the sheriff's group is the fact that the ball keeps changing or the target keeps changing in the sense that today these people are non-non-nons. Then all of a sudden, well, guess what? Now there's a couple more crimes on there, so it seems that as the state needs to drop their population, there tends to be more non-non-nons on the list. So you're correct in what you say. It hasn't been too bad so far. I just hope it's controllable. But we're watching it closely, and we have a pretty strong legislative group. So, yes.
Is the state actually paying us to help with the prisoner load? Do we expect to actually get the money from them? Can we trust them to help pay for it?
Well, I was good until you said trust. No, I don't trust the state.
Good for you.
Yeah, they haven't been a good partner. So far, they had they've been funding us appropriately. I hope they continue to do so. The Prop 30 they went through was a piece of that guaranteed some of the funding. So we'll see. I'm leery, to be honest with you, and my suspicion is at one point or another the funding will go away and I'll continue to have the inmates.
So does that funding put cops on the street, deputies on the street, or just in the jail?
Well, it did. It's pay for the deputies on the street. So the funding doesn't come directly to the sheriff. Let me be clear about that. The funding comes to the county, and there's a community corrections partnership that's outlined in the penal code that says I'm on it, the sheriff's on it, the public defender, district attorney, one of the judges, Vacaville chief. There's a police chief, a local police chief, and the probation chief. So we get together and say, okay, this is what we need to make this work. A good chunk of the funding has gone to probation in the sense that they're the ones that are getting a lot of these folks out of the prison and watching them. I've gotten quite a bit because I had to open up two 2 80-bed mods at the jail to take the influx of the inmates, and then I was able to get the deputy sheriffs to do the compliance checks. So yes, we're splitting it, but the end goal would be to dump more of the money into the programming and less money my way, because arguably if it works, there shouldn't be as many people in jail. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Any more questions on realignment?
Can I talk about CCWs?
Yes, you certainly can. That's where we're headed next. That was a great segue. You're on your own self.
You set me up. No, I knew. Concealed weapons permits. Let me give you a little bit of history, and then kind of tell you where we're at. Gary Stanton, the way it was up until about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, the agreement with the county group, police chiefs and the sheriff, was that if you lived in the city, you were supposed to make application to the local police chief, and Gary probably told you this when he was at one of your meetings, but some of you people may not know. You're supposed to make your application to the local police chief. If you received a letter of denial, then you could make application to the sheriff. I don't think a whole lot of people were successful, and it was kind of cumbersome, and I don't think it was working well. So Sheriff Stanton, very pro Second Amendment, as I am, said, you know, I think we need to get on with this. It's clear that the penal code outlines that the sheriff can do this, because it says the sheriff or local police chief. The sheriff's the chief law enforcement officer in the county. We have jurisdiction through the whole county. So Sheriff Stanton said, you know what, just apply to me. And the chiefs really are actually, and quite honestly, I've had a couple of them send them. The chiefs are sending them directly to us now. So that's kind of the way it works now, and it's been working for the last couple of years, that if you want a concealed weapons permit, you make application to the sheriff or process. So the problem was, is once you say, hey, I'm going to do that, which Sheriff Stanton did, then you get a whole bunch of people applying for concealed weapons permit, and we don't have any staff to process it, because the liability falls on the sheriff to issue the permit, and there's some things that the sheriff needs to do in good conscience. When you have to decide, okay, what's the good cause, because we're getting a lot of public records requests and saying, we want to look at these permits, we want to see what you're doing, sheriff, we want to know what's going on. So we need to make sure that our process is sound and it's tight and it's working well. There's a background process that needs to be done where we do some checks where you've lived and this and that. So Gary was doing the best he could with it, and it was difficult. And he had, actually my secretary at the time was doing it part-time. And there's a lot of paperwork that you can imagine is involved, public contact and this and that. So when I was appointed sheriff, Gary Stanton and I had a discussion. He said, hey, you know, you're probably going to need to do something with concealed weapons permits, because I think there's a backlog. There's like about 180 of them that had been sitting for about 3 or 4 months, needing follow-up, and we need to do this or that or something with them. And so they just weren't getting through very fast. And then people call and say, hey, where's my permit, you know, whatnot. So I had thought about it, and I'm kind of one of these people that I like efficiencies. There was a young lady that I was able to, let me back up. When you're new, it's kind of like you get the first 100 days, you can kind of do what you want, so to speak. So I thought, well, I'm going to move a couple of people around and do what I want to do. But one of which was Kelly Sayer. She's my concealed weapons coordinator. She is one of those employees that is very high-end, extremely organized. And so I said, Kelly, you got to help me. I got this backlog of these permits. We need to ramp it up. We need to get going with this. And so I said, can you help me do this? And she says, absolutely. So she's gone in, and how many, well, I probably don't want to say, there's probably some people in the room that have a CCW. What my goal is I want to be able to turn these things in about 3 months. So we've eliminated most of the backlog. Since the gun control issue has come to national attention lately, I'm getting about 20 a week now, 20 new permits a week. That's okay, but we need to process them in a timely manner. So I don't want people sitting for a long time, but you know, then again, there's only so much you can take. I suspect it'll probably die off here. I think it's just a spike right now. But my goal is to clear them out. We've got all but just a few pretty well caught up. I got a stack on my desk that I normally do Friday morning, which I didn't have time to do today, try to process them. So, and remember, we're also doing new permits as well as the renewals. So we're very efficient with it. I think any of you that have had contact with Kelly, you found her very professional, and my goal is to do this and do it quickly for you. So my stance is exactly the same as Gary's, although I am making sure that the paperwork, not that Gary didn't, but I'm a little more, we're making sure all the files look the same, Because anytime you do this and you do it on the volume that I'm going to do it on, then you probably want to make sure your process is sound because somebody's going to challenge me. So I want to make sure that I'm ready for the challenge. I will tell you one thing about good cause statements. You can help me in the sense that there's some stuff like on the websites that says, write the sheriff this. I can't have every good cause statement looking exactly the same with the same, like if it's a misspelled word or something. Really, if you have the need to carry the firearm, tell me why you need it. Tell me why it's personal to you, and I'm sure we could probably help you out. Okay? I just need to know why it's personal to you and why you think you need it.
What's the cost now?
Oh!
Yeah.
Good question.
I was hoping you were. How about this? I'm not a politician. Here's my politician stuff. Well, it's whatever the law says. Yeah, it's regulated by the penal code. I'm thinking like a couple $100, something like that. It's not expensive. There's charges. We charge a little bit, and then you have to have the fingerprints done and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't. Do you guys know?
It's over.
Might be on our website.
It's $800 in Fairfield.
Whoa. For a concealed carry?
Yes.
No wonder.
That's what it used.
No wonder why they're coming to me.
Does that include the weapon?
Yeah, you get a free gun with it.
I'm surprised by that because the penal code is very, very clear with direction about what you can charge, and I think that's exorbitant. We're right where you're supposed to be in the penal code. We've done a lot of work on it. So I think we're very efficient with it, and I'm cranking them out.
Actually, I'd rather it include the ammo. I can get the weapon.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is we're beefing it up just a little bit in the sense that I want to make sure you're a county resident, because when you do it and at the volume we are, I want to make sure that I'm issuing to people who live in Solano County, because that's really what I'm supposed to do. So we may ask for a PG&E bill or a couple of PG&E bills. Not that I'm trying to look at your business, I just want to show proof of residency. Your driver's license. Does your driver's license say, hey, I live in Vacaville, hey, I live in Sassoon? So I'm going to look at those things to make sure that I'm issuing to my constituents and the folks that are in the county with the need, so we're doing it properly. Most of the permits that you would apply for would be a standard permit. That's a 2-year permit. And once you get through the initial process, that's really more is kind of the bogged down part, because we have to do a fingerprint check, and then we do some local checks on you to make sure that you can legally possess the firearm. That's, I have to do that before I issue it to make sure that you can legally have it. So I know there's a backlog with the DOJ and the Fed, so it used to be about a week turnaround. It's my understanding it's like 6 weeks now. So we can do some other things and get it done as soon as we can. But I think the process is going well, and I'm pleased with it. I don't know if I can take 20 new ones a week. The other thing that we found out too, because Kelly's been doing some research, there was a misunderstanding that if your permit expired, that you had to start the process all over again, and that's not the case. What I need to do is, if your permit expires, and I haven't really decided on exactly what I'm going to do with this yet, is I have to pick a time period, probably a year or 2 years, not sure what I want to do yet, that if you haven't called me up to renew, and I'm not going to send you a letter reminding you, it's up to you to do it. If I haven't heard from you in a couple of years, then I'll send a notice to the state saying, hey, this person's no longer a valid permit holder, and then if you want to get a permit, you'd have to start all over again. But so I do need to probably do that. But most folks renew them. They're pretty good about it and renew them right on. And the renewal process is easy. You just kind of give me the good cause again. There's no fingerprint check or anything like that, because once you're in the system, if you violate something, they notice us. It's an automatic deal. So we just, there's a training requirement. And I'm bringing on a couple more vendors to handle the load. So once you get through the background process, we send you out for training. The first time through, I think, is an 8-hour class, and somewhere a little more than that, depending on the vendor. And I review their criteria to make sure that it's appropriate. Did you find it out yet?
It's like a standard to check.
When you get a chance, could you give us that web address?
Yeah, it's on the county, isn't it?
It's www.solanocounty.com.
www.solanocounty.com.
And then you go,
and then /
you just navigate to sheriff,
sheriff,
and then public information and concealed weapons. And,
Okay.
Very easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we ought to have the cost right up front.
Yeah, looks like a couple $100, $200, 200 something for the standard room.
150, 105.90 looks like.
105 plus $93 to the state.
Well, that's not bad.
Pretty expensive. Yeah, so once you get the training classes, I want to make sure the vendors make them fun and informative. Because really what I'm looking for is, can you safely handle the gun, and can you reasonably hit what you're shooting at? You know, Bill's on the SWAT team, so I expect him to be shooting at about 90%. I don't want my CCW holders shoot. Well, it'd be nice if he did, but you know, if you can safely handle the weapon, we're good with that. Then the renewal is a 4-hour renewal class where you go, they qualify you again, they bring me the targets, you know. And most people are pretty darn good shots. And I will tell you, the ladies are pretty good shots. Much better than the men, I'm just saying.
We got more to protect.
Apparently, because are deadly. So, any more questions on CCWs? No.
Okay, before you sit down, though, I don't want you going anywhere. I want to tell everybody that there is a gun on the back counter. On the raffle table. And earlier this evening, I was speaking to, I think it was Sergeant Bill Hornbrook,
Yes.
who told me that they actually use those same guns. Well, why don't you tell them? Because it's great for target. You didn't want to talk, did you? It's just, I get these because there's a lot of us that can't get to a shooting range and can't, practice. And this is a great way to do it. It's safe, and, well, they hurt, though, don't they?
They do. It's an airsoft gun. It's in the back.
Oh.
We use those in some of our SWAT trainings where we use some force-on-force trainings. They do hurt. We've got to be careful. We wear eye protection and sweatshirts and things like that. But it is a nice little thing to practice with.
Okay, I just wanted you all to know that that's back there and that he had made a comment about it. I didn't know that anybody else used them except kids. Yes?
I got a question on the Second Amendment rights. If the federal government orders you to come in and confiscate our assault rifles, will you do that?
I don't believe they're going to do that. Let me give you my position on the Second Amendment. You guys have been waiting for this. So here it is. I'm pro Second Amendment. The California State Sheriff's Association did a position that they wrote a letter to Biden, Vice President Biden. I agree 100% with that in the fact that you have the right to keep and bear arms. I support that. I took an oath of the Constitution. I intend to enforce that. With that said, again, you guys talked about the media. The media's got this thing whipped into a frenzy in the sense that my position is not to take guns away, or I have an interest in taking guns away from lawful citizens. You guys have the right to have your weapons. I agree with you. The issue, I think, is that we keep getting lost in the media, is there's people out there with mental health issues. We're not addressing that. There's felons that have guns. We're not addressing that. No money's being put into that, and so all the focus on all these issues that have taken place are focusing on, well, it's an assault weapon. Well, I've got a number, I think it's 7% or less of the deaths in the United States are caused by guns. And I would submit to you that assault weapons is probably 0.0001% of that. Bill takes guns off the street. We're not seeing the assault weapons. The problem is, and I strongly believe this, if you're truly a responsible gun owner, sounds like you are, and I hope you are, then I would hope your weapons are locked up in a safe, and if you've got a family member that has some mental health issues, that you're not going to let them have access to that gun. That's the problem. And the other issue we run across as sheriffs and law enforcement is I don't have access to that mental health information. I want that. I want some of this stuff in the system, and this is what the sheriffs want as a group, that if you are not supposed to have a gun, or you have a mental health issue or whatever, I want to know that. And I don't want to hear this, well, it's HIPAA, it's protected, it's this, that, and the other thing. That doesn't help us. Okay? So where I'm focusing my attention is I want access to that information, so if I take a gun away from somebody, it's somebody with a mental health issue. It's not going to be a law-abiding citizen. All right?
So as a new resident of the unincorporated area, if I put an emergency 911 call, what's my response time?
About 3 hours. No, actually, it's pretty speedy. Where do you live at?
Up on Meridian.
We're pretty. Our response times generally 14 minutes or less, usually less. I have generally 6 deputy sheriffs on the road at any one time, sometimes a little more. And it depends. The thing what you have is we have 827 square miles we patrol. So with 6 cars out there, Sometimes it's hit and miss in the sense if we're close, we're right there. But I do keep usually a couple of cars up in the North County. Meridian's pretty well traveled. So you should be happy with response time.
Well, 14 minutes, a lot can happen. So
Absolutely.
You know, if any of us have somebody we end up needing to shoot to defend our family, what kind of trouble are we in?
Well, if you're on your own property in your own home, I think you're probably fine.
I agree with you, but that's not what you always hear. You know, it's my home, my castle, but that's not what I always hear.
Yeah, well, and like I said, we'd have to look at all the circumstances, but from what you're telling me, you're in the right to do what you got to do.
This is your chance, folks, to ask questions. And I need you to remember one thing. This man that's standing up here in front of you is an elected official. He is the only law enforcement elected officer that we have. So he is, thank the good Lord for us, a constitutionalist, and will do the right. We will work by all the constitutional laws to help us. That's why we need to elect him. Sheriffs have been called the last bastion of hope in this country because they are elected. And that includes his department.
Hope to be elected. I'm not elected yet.
You're going to be elected.
Yes, ma'am.
Has Vallejo's bankruptcy and their lack of funding for their police force had any negative impact upon you as the sheriff's department?
Yes, I wouldn't say negative impact, but it's impacted us. Two areas. One, our Vallejo beat cars are generally, we're probably twice a night built. Going out to help Vallejo, so they'll get overrun with calls. They call us because we have beat cars down there. I don't mind helping them out as long as I'm taking care of the residents in the county. And the other area is, again, back to the concealed weapons permits. I've got a lot of people that have, sending something to me, and I can tell you what it says. I live in Vallejo. There was a carjacking down my street. My neighbor was burglarized. I was robbed. Whatever it is, those are some pretty, scary stories that they're telling, and I want to apply for a permit. I'd say that's pretty much a good cause. So I think there's a lot of people that are scared right now, and in Solano County, and with realignment and stuff like that, rightfully so. So if you just tell me your story and you tell me what happened, generally I can help you.
Another question. So since the prison is over in Vacaville, when they release the prisoners from the facility there, the state facility there, where do those people go? Do they stay here or do they get shipped back to where?
Yeah, they go back to their county of residence. So a good portion of those probably don't live in our county. Just so you know, I live just down the street from the prison, and I have twin 10-year-olds. I had kids late in life, so that's why. But nobody asked me, why do you want to be sheriff? Well, because I have 10-year-old kids at home, and if I retired, which I could probably do, then I'd be handling children's issues. I'm not going to do that. It's not going to happen. I need to be gainfully employed.
What about the county jail right there on Union Avenue? When do they release every day?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
do
the
they
idea
have
is
a particular time? Because there's a joke around Main Street sometimes in Sassoon about, it's 5 o'clock Friday.
No, actually, they're not always released at 5. Usually it's probably later at night because they get back from court and we got to process them. But understanding the law, that if a person has no further charges, it's illegal for me to hold them.
Absolutely.
Can't do it. So Keith works the jail. Do you want to talk about how the releasing goes? Can you do that?
We release them.
Yeah.
We release them 24 hours a day.
Nope, can't hear you.
We release them 24 hours a day. But usually Monday through Friday, we'll do a release after court's closed, after we get the paperwork, after all the warrants checks are done, 7 o'clock and later, 7 to 9.
But a lot of them too. A lot of these there's some that wander. We call them, they wander around with their paper suits on. They don't have anything. But generally speaking, if they have any money on the books, we have a debit card that we issue them, and there's a machine right across the street so they can go access cash. A lot of them will call and have a ride waiting for them. So the majority of them aren't walking around. There's a few that do because they choose to. The majority of them aren't going to get a ride, get out of the area.
It's just a hearsay thing. I wasn't.
But what's funny is if it was really that big of a deal where they were doing something, we'd hear about it. You just don't, because they trickle out of the jail.
We have a range in Fairfield.
Yes.
Public access to that.
Oh, the Fairfield Police Department range?
Yes.
I don't believe there's public access. It's a law enforcement range. So, and it's owned by the city of Fairfield. It cost me $600 to rent it a day to get my deputies through it. So, is that the one you're talking about? The one over on Rex Cliff Drive? Off Warner?
That's right.
Yeah, that's owned by the city of Fairfield. It's the police department's range. I have to rent it if I want to use it. So I don't believe that's a public range. The public range is, I think that there's guns and stuff in Vacaville and the old shooting gallery. I don't know what you call it now. And that's where my CCW instructors train. Is at the what do they call the shooting gallery now?
Center Mass.
Center Mass. I can't ever remember that.
There's one out of Yolo County too.
Yeah.
The reason I was talking about it is the relationship with police and people on the street has been strained over the last few years. Should we begin to adopt some relationships so that there's a humanity side that the people on the streets can look at a police officer and say, there's a good man, rather than those damn cops. And that's the sort of general attitude that we're getting.
Hey, easy now.
It's true.
You're probably, I don't disagree.
So if we can reach out to police and sheriff, then it needs to come back the other way. So we can help. It's going to be a synergy in what you're doing, so we cooperate with you.
Yeah, unfortunately with that range, I don't have any control over it because I have to rent it myself as well.
Yeah, I've almost finished my range. You guys can come out and shoot anytime on my place.
Yeah. There's lots of ranges out in the county, yeah. Well, every time we do that, then we have OSHA issues and all kinds of stuff.
Where's your range at? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
You left for that small bore.
I have a question on another issue. I have a question on another issue entirely. What do you do? We've been going to some of the constitutional sheriff's events in Northern California and have heard a lot about the Army Corps of Engineers, the Fish and Game, coming onto people's property and telling them what they can and cannot do on their property. And as a matter of fact, at the Solano Republican Women's, there is a woman there who told me about, I think it was the Army Corps of Engineers, came onto her property and told her that they couldn't build a shed that they wanted to build. Now, can they come into this county and tell people what they can do and cannot do on their land?
I'm not totally up to speed on the issue, but I'll tell you this. I talked to John Lope, and he said that, and I agree with him, that if, as me being a constitutional sheriff, they have to go through me or talk to me about it before they do any of that. So, I'm not aware of any of the issues at this point, but I suspect in talking to Sheriff Lope, the Delta seems to be probably an area which we need to pay some attention to. So yeah, we need to get schooled up on it. But I think, where you guys are talking, the one that just irks me is the Oyster Company. Well, and Dillon Beach over there, that's another one. That is just, I totally don't agree with that.
So if somebody does run into a problem with the Corps of Engineers or
you need to call me.
Exactly.
Let me have a pass out.
Call you?
Yeah, let me have a pass out. Because they're not supposed to be in the county without notifying the sheriff. And then we have a pretty decent relationship. I've never dealt with those guys, but generally with the FBI and the other groups, they don't do much in the county without letting us know what they're doing. So, but that group, I'm sure, will butt heads with for them.
See, I told you he was the last bastion of hope.
Thank you.
They're going to stick around, I think, for a few minutes. I told them to order something to eat, but they don't seem to.